The Supreme Court has decided on Brexit, and nothing much has changed, or perhaps more accurately, nothing much has changed of any significance. I would advise watching the debate in Parliament, linked below. It's an hour and a half long, and if you are like me, you will feel sorry for David Davis's knees by the end of it. Though the key point is that the SNP have clearly been stuffed by the ruling, as demonstrated by their MPs staying to the bitter end, desperately trying to prop up their pointless arguments about Scotland. I say pointless because membership of the EU is not a devolved issue, linked below, and the EU have already told them they don't want Scotland to remain without the rest of the UK, because it will inflame separatist movements elsewhere in Europe. Gina Miller is of course playing the victim in the hour of her triumph. Clearly this was the reason she was chosen to front the legal challenge along with a Brazilian hairdresser, so that nutters on Twitter would call them names and send them death threats to promote the meme that Brexit is somehow, some way, anything to do with racism. We needn't get into her purple charity website, linked below, or her husband's business links to George Soros, linked below, as her court case was outflanked a month ago by the vote on Article 50 and the setting up of the timetable for the end of March. Oh, and a group calling themselves 48 and Beyond have sprung up, linked below, urging people to send MPs a form letter that they have prepared, and should you wish for a bit of virtue signal activism. No doubt whoever is behind this group will be revealed soon enough. According to their website, which is still under construction, they have 51,000 campaign members, 25,000 Facebook likes, 1,600 Twitter followers, 250 Instagram followers. To me, this suggests that they have bought these, a suspicion reinforced by their Twitter feed consisting of spamming Jeremy Corbyn and the odd person telling them to bog off. Of equal amusement is the reaction of American commentators on sites like Breitbart. Apparently, this sort of thing justifies the Second Amendment and is the reason they need their guns. But let us for a moment consider what the court has decided. The ruling states that the government cannot use the royal prerogative to force through legislation on Brexit, which is hardly surprising, and I doubt anyone who voted for Brexit thought they could, or wanted them to, since the whole point of Brexit is about parliamentary sovereignty. Thus, when redneck Yanks polish their guns and claim this ruling is somehow undemocratic, you will forgive me for smiling and pointing to executive orders. You know, the executive orders created to buy onions and napkins that now impose sanctions on Russia. At least the royal prerogative was intended to deal with matters of state, like international treaties and such. So, how are your guns doing in stopping executive orders? An interesting point was raised in the debate as to whether the ruling means the government must consult Parliament before declaring war. Mr. Davis did not have an answer to this question, and I doubt anyone else does. But then the Supreme Court is a creation of the lamentable Tony Blair government, and like everything that government did, the Supreme Court is ill thought out, half-arsed and unnecessary. Therefore, It is not surprising that the ruling, while solving the current dispute, has no doubt led to further confusion in matters of governance. One wonders why the Blair government stood for election in the United Kingdom, as it clearly wanted to rule somewhere else. The Supreme Court was created to make us America, the licensing hours were changed to make us France, and they imported whoever they could find because they didn't like the British. Link below. Speaking of bodies in desperate need of reform, the real stumbling block for any Brexit legislation will be the House of Lords, and again the fault for this lies entirely with the Blair government, who set out to reform it on the grounds that the hereditary principle was outdated, though in reality he did it for spiteful, narrow political reasons, bottled the process halfway through, and then tried to pack the place with placemen. Thus, we have the absurd position in which the House of Commons has 650 MPs and the House of Lords has 808 members. But back to the politics. I have always been of the view that Brexit is a process and not an event, and have been rather sceptical of the more extreme viewpoints regarding the New World Order, or that this would lead to a new St. Bryce's Day. Link below. The Tories, apart from Kenneth Bilderberg Clark obviously, have determined upon a course toward Brexit. The Lib Dems have set themselves up as the pro-EU party. The big question is, what will Labour do? If they have any sense, they will not play the same game they played over Maastricht, where the policy was to support the major government, as they supported the Maastricht Treaty and the policy, but to politic at every opportunity. And yes, it is true that they won the 1997 election, in part because of this, but at the cost of destroying all goodwill toward the EU and driving their own supporters to UKIP. The problem for Labour is that there are currently three parties, Scottish Labour and the Labour Party, the latter being split between the party in London and T'others, a position further confused by the party being overly centralised and hidebound by some notional manifesto. Oh, and one last thing. I had to laugh at the MPs during the debate who claimed that people didn't know what they were voting for in the referendum, as apparently they were confused that voting leave would mean that they would leave the single market or whatever. Yes, of course they did, Malcolm.